Bruce Lowry Chevrolet is celebrating 100 years of family ownership and giving you the best deal on your next vehicle. From the 2022 Chevy Silverado Crew Cab with 1.9% APR for well-qualified buyers, to the 2022 Chevy Equinox with 0% APR or $1,000 cash allowance. Come see us at 711 Southwest Loop 820 in Fort Worth or visit BruceLowryChevrolet.com. Bruce Lowry Chevrolet. Find new roads.
Hey everybody, Kevin Crouch here with Ellis County Weather. I want to take a moment to talk to you about hail, and that's something that we have seen quite a bit of in North Texas. If you've been here during severe weather season, odds are you've at least heard about it or seen it yourself. As you can see behind me, this car is absolutely getting pelted with hail, and you see it just bouncing off there. This is pretty small. This is really pea-sized hail, and of course, we've seen hail up to the size of softballs, even baseballs and grapefruits and, very, very large hail possible. Usually, though, it's going to look a little bit like that. I want to talk about what causes hail, why it looks the way it does, and some of the things that happen around that weather phenomenon. So one of the things I want to talk about is the cloud. So here's where it starts. You see how this cloud is moving upward, right? And all that upward push, well, that's one of the things that you have to create a thunderstorm. When you see those clouds billowing up, that's from lift. So that is the updraft. So what's happening here is you see this cloud is pushing up. There's an updraft due to lift in the atmosphere that is pushing that upward. And eventually it's going to go high up enough that it's going to hit the troposphere. So really the tropopause, which is the top of the troposphere that separates the troposphere from the stratosphere. So as we go on, you'll see that here it's spreading out, right? It's gone as high as it can go. It's hitting the tropopause and it's spreading out. But right up here you see that we have an overshooting top, right? And you can just barely see it there, but it's pushing above the tropopause into the stratosphere. So you have those very, very strong updrafts. And this is just kind of a better picture of it. You see the anvil here. This is where you hit the tropopause, and most of the storm stops because it takes an incredibly powerful updraft. But here you see it. This is that overshooting top right there. So this is shooting above the anvil, and that's marking a very powerful updraft. The thing is, the way that hail forms, and you can kind of tell in this picture, you see these little bitty kind of these cores, right? If you get a larger hailstone, sometimes you can really only see it in larger stones like golf ball sized, baseball sized hail. If you were to cut that thing open, sometimes they're just going to fall apart. But if you're able to get a clean cut, you'll actually see rings inside of the hailstone that will show you how many times the raindrop has been carried up into the updraft and frozen, because the upper levels of these clouds it's frozen up there. So when you're getting up to these heights, you're getting the ice crystals up here. So when this hail has been carried up into the storm, it's freezing. And what happens is that obviously this is a very strong updraft, as we talked about. Now, you don't have to have an overshooting top to get hail. It just really, really helps. But what happens is the rain is carried up into the cloud, and you have these raindrops that will go up, get frozen, and then when they become heavy enough to then compete with the updraft and heavy enough for gravity to then pull them down, that's when they come down as hail to the surface. So here's the thing. When you have a strong enough updraft, a lot of times, like I said, marked by an overshooting top, you're going to have these hailstones that get carried up multiple times. They may go up and then start to fall down a little and then go up again, and then so on and so forth, and that's where you get those rings. That's also where you get larger hailstones, because what's happened is that you have one stone there, and then it's been carried up again, and you have another layer of ice that's been added on top of that. So that's how you get hailstones that are really large sometimes, that have multiple layers to them, kind of like onions, right? If you watch Shrek, you would know that, of course, but that's where you get your hailstones. And so when you have a storm with a very strong updraft, where those raindrops are carried up into the storm and frozen, and come back down, normally we just get rain, right? The updraft, a lot of the time, is not strong enough to carry the rain up and freeze it, or it's not strong enough to carry it all the way up into the storm, into those really freezing temperatures to create hail. But when you have those, most of the time, supercell thunderstorms, that's why we talk about supercell thunderstorms usually having the largest hail, because they're able to create those really strong updrafts and, like we say, create the overshooting top, and you hit the troposphere here, and that lift, that amount of lift, is how you can determine partially where you're going to have some of the strongest storms, some of the largest hail. And a lot of the time it's the backwards. The hail can tell you that you have a strong updraft. So that's how those things correlate. And so when you look off in the distance and you see an anvil like this, and you see that overshooting top, odds are you've probably got a hailstone or a hailstorm on your hands. I hope this was interesting. If you have any hail-related questions or maybe an interesting hail story, I would love for you to put that in the comments below. Make sure you're going to elliscountyweather.com to follow all the latest forecast information and to find the links to the social pages, the Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram that you can follow to find the latest updates there. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.